This is Jill and
Arden.
And we're in LaGrange, Kentucky, and you're listening to Scandal Water,
where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
and Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Morning, Ashley.
Good morning.
You're gonna love this
I'm gonna love this topic. Yes.
We are talking about the 80s today.
I'm ready. I'm prepared. I didn't even know, and I was still prepared.
Tell them what you're wearing.
I'm wearing my The Goonies Never Say Die shirt. I get more compliments on this shirt. Can I tell you that? Every time I go out in it, people are like, Goonies Never Say Die. And I'm like, that's right. So it's like a battle cry.
Oh, see? That's one of those movies. Like, if you're a fan, you're a diehard fan.
Yes, you are. Well, you don't die because Goonies never say die.
Goonies never die.
They never say die.
Well, as an 80s child, Ashley, I thought I would start by asking you, much as we did last time, to share some phrases or things you associate with that decade.
Oh, gosh. Most of it is my childhood. I was born in 1980, in February of 1980, so, like, I came in with the decade. So I really grew up in this decade. A lot of the cartoons would be what I would remember.
Like, what is one of your...
She-Ra.
Okay.
Come on.
All right.
She-Ra and He-Man, Thundercats. I don't know if that was 90s. I think that was 80s still. But loved that. I loved the films. I just loved everything, man.
Okay. All right.
I was in it.
Well, I figured I needed to continue this because I gave you a few phrases from the 70s last time. I thought I would give you a couple of phrases for the 80s. I found no duh.
Oh, yeah. I said that a lot.
Cowabunga.
Didn't do that as much. Did that come from The Simpsons?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally tubular.
No, I would have been an awesome. Awesome is what I adopted, or cool, awesome, dude.
Yes, there you go.
I still say dude a lot. Like,
that's
awesome.
Well, and a few items associated with the 80s might be parachute pants and breakdancing.
Oh, yeah.
Things,
MC Hammer.
I guess not items, but things.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this, man.
So I ran across a 2022 show called 80s Top 10.
Oh.
It's amazing. I've seen the whole thing. It aired on Disney Plus. It's hosted by Rob Lowe, and it has 6 episodes.
What a good choice for the host, can I say?
I'm telling you, it is so fun. You should go check it out.
I will.
But each episode has a different focus, and so the one that I chose to focus on for this particular episode, the one that fit my needs, was entitled Water Cooler Moments. And what they did was, in this particular episode, they named the 10 most memorable or significant water cooler moments of the 80s as determined by a group of 8 cultural historians. Now, I
thought you were going to say it's determined by a group of 8-year-olds.
I don't think that would be very effective. Well, one caveat is, this is something Rob Lowe clearly tells us. They specifically focused on triumphant moments. They steered away from tragedies.
Yeah.
No tragedies.
No bogus. Nothing bogus, man. Only triumphant.
That's right.
Most triumphant.
So, I'm going to give you those top 10.
Okay.
Now,
is this in entertainment or in the...
These are just water cooler moments.
Okay.
And now you will find that a lot of these do touch entertainment, but they are not, that is not the specific parameters.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm stealing myself.
Now, if you'd like to guess any, you can, or I can just give you the list. I'm not sure if you'll get them.
Like the Challenger explosion, that kind of stuff?
But no tragedies.
Oh, no tragedies. You said most triumph. No, just go ahead and tell me.
Okay.
Just go ahead and tell me.
Okay. Feel free to jump in here if one of these strikes you, because I actually found these fascinating. And again, you're going to see several things we have touched upon in our episodes. Right? Number 10, the fight between Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler on the David Letterman show.
Oh, I have heard of this, but I did not see it.
I'd never heard of it.
You hadn't heard of it?
No, I had. Here you go. I'm going to give you a tiny bit about it because I found this so fascinating. And this relates to our pro wrestling episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jerry the King Lawler.
So here's what happened, you guys. These two fellas had already had a very public feud because Andy Kaufman was creating a lot of sensationalism by fighting women. So Jerry the King Lawler, a pro wrestler, had challenged him to a match, and his little barb or his provoking comment to Andy Kaufman was, "Why don't you fight a man?" Ooh. Okay. The two then had a highly publicized match where, as you're looking at it, it appears that Andy Kaufman gets knocked out cold. Now, I'm not sure if this is just scripted or, but in this particular incident, they have now been invited on the David Letterman show. And it starts out like they're supposed to just be two guests and they're just supposed to be polite. But they start throwing barbs back and forth. And then the next thing you know, Jerry Lawler gets up, he's standing, he's facing Andy Kaufman, he's in his face, and he hits him in the face. And it ends up turning into this screaming, cursing.
Can you imagine how stressed I would have been watching that as a little child?
You would not have been able to handle this. Andy throws a drink at Jerry at one point. Then Jerry comes after him. And of course, the security ends up coming in and like stopping it. And they maintained forever, for ages upon ages, that it was unscripted. It was not until a decade later, Andy Kaufman was gone at this time, that Jerry admitted it was planned. And it was not until 2019 in an interview that David Letterman admitted he was in on it and knew what was going down.
Oh my gosh.
He said he didn't know how it was going down, and it did take him aback as it was happening around him.
Yeah, like, it's happening.
But he was in on it. So that was number 10. All right.
That is a water cooler moment.
Yeah. Number 9 was the 1985 collaboration of Run DMC with Aerosmith on the song Walk This Way. And the reason...
This way.
I did love that. I love that music video. But they said it was groundbreaking because it brought hip-hop into the mainstream and it opened the door for not only hip-hop, but also more black artists to be featured on MTV, because they said prior to that time, you weren't seeing a lot of that. It was a big deal. Number 8 was the 1983 final MASH episode.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I got goosebumps. That's so sad.
Yeah. And they said that they gave the show a lot of credit, even though it ran primarily through the 70s. It was a really big moment, of course, the ending of it. And they talked about, on this top 10 episode, they talked about how powerful this show was in helping people deal with their very conflicted feelings about war. During a time period that was not very far removed from the Vietnam War.
It's hard for me to watch MASH. I appreciate the cultural significance of it, but I have a hard time watching it. I don't like laugh tracks in that particular situation. It really takes away from it for me. If they hadn't had the laugh track, I probably could handle watching more of it. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I heard some kind of trivia that at the end of that, because this was when you still couldn't pause television, it was live, there was some kind of grand flushing, for lack of a better term, that happened at the end of it, because everybody had held having to go to the bathroom. They didn't want to miss anything. Right. So like the water pressure dropped in America.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I'm pretty sure somebody can look up that, but I think that's something that happened.
Well, number 7 was the coverage of baby Jessica, the toddler who fell into the... Yes. Her full name was Jessica McClure, and while thankfully she was rescued safely, the reason why this incident made this list... Well, yeah, you were just so caught up in it. Like it was just heart-wrenching watching this happen. Your heart was racing the whole time. But anyway, they said that one of the reasons why it made the list was not just because of the incident itself, but also because it helped to launch CNN and the advent of ongoing real-time news coverage. Because prior to that, you had your news at certain times of the day. CNN was like this struggling little upstart, and they covered it. Yep, they covered it, and there you go.
Her leg was up here, and she was all twisted in there, and it was just heart-wrenching. Like everybody was like, "Oh, baby Jessica."
Yeah. I actually heard a podcast talking about the aftermath and the trauma that people went through. Like, not just... I mean, she was a baby, and so it did talk about some of the things about her life, but the people who were trying to save her, it was incredibly traumatic for them,
I
too.
imagine.
Yeah.
Golly, there is something, that reminds me of something. I'll try to find it. I will not guarantee that I will find this to put in the show notes, but there was something I saw. You know, you get those random Facebook videos that'll come up, and there was another incident, I don't want to say recently, I think it was maybe in the 2000s, where another child in a different country had fallen down a fallen down something like this, and they had tried for hours. They were like trying to dig this kid out or something. This boy came home from school, didn't know them, came up in the crowd. They couldn't. They're like, no, none of us can fit in here. And
they put that boy.
He volunteered.
Down there.
He volunteered to go head first. He had to go head first to try to pull this baby out.
Oh my goodness!
It was like a toddler thing, and they play this. I mean, look, I got goosebumps all over me. They play this music over top of it when they're showing the video, but he volunteers, and there was no guarantee that he wouldn't get stuck too.
The ethical dilemma of risking a child's life to save another child. Oh my goodness!
But he talked to like his parents or his neighbors or something, and he agreed to go down in there, and I think it took a while to get him down there and then to get him back out, and he got the baby out.
Oh, that makes me feel claustrophobic just thinking about it. Oh my goodness, that stresses me out. I'm so glad those children are safe.
Yes.
Whew. Okay, well, number 6 was the first launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia on April 12th, 1981, because of the way it reignited the excitement with the space program and space travel. And they said it also sparked a very strong feeling of patriotism.
Oh, yeah.
Now, mind you, you brought up the Challenger explosion, but they were avoiding tragedies.
Sure, yeah.
So, number 5, the Who Shot JR cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
That ended the 1980 season of the primetime soap opera Dallas. They said the mystery of who shot the character JR was talked about globally. They had to just come up with something.
Yeah, who did do it? I don't even remember who did do it.
It was his mistress. Oh. Yeah. But here's the thing. It was kind of this last minute, like, oh, how are we going to handle this show? They just shot him kind of like, this was not a thought out thing. It was kind of a reactive decision. And it ended up turning into such a big deal that the executives actually shot multiple versions of the reveal of who did it, so that even the actors wouldn't know.
Wow.
Yeah. And they said the season premiere that revealed the identity of the shooter brought in huge ratings, and this set the precedent for other shows and how they handled their season finales.
Nice.
Give us cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Number 4 was Oprah Winfrey's meteoric rise in popularity.
Oh, for sure.
And then her impact on daytime TV through her talk show.
Although I would have put her more in the 90s, but I guess that's when she was at her peak popularity.
Right. Yeah, but this is when she's Madonna's impact on music, fashion, and the culture in general was number 3. Number 2 is one of the topics that I'm going to be sharing with you. So I'm going to skip number 2 for right now. Okay. Number 1, Princess Diana's wedding.
Oh,
we just did an episode
on that.
Yeah. It was interesting in this particular episode, they didn't just talk about her wedding. They actually did a little feature on her dress and how much hype and secrecy they had to go to just about her dress.
Wow.
It was crazy. Now, as we said last week when we were talking about the 70s, I was impressed by how much content related to the 80s you and I have already covered.
Well, yeah.
And I know we have a lot of 80s fans out there. So I'm going to quickly remind you of the episodes we have already done that you might want to go check out. These are sitting in our backlog right now in our catalog. So go find these if you want to hear a little bit more about some of these topics. We did a 2-part focus on Hoosiers just last month, which was filmed in the 80s. True Love, we celebrate this Valentine's Day with the beloved Princess Bride, was our episode on the Princess Bride that came out just this past February 13th of 2024. The classic Christmas movie Die Hard.
Yeah, it was.
Came out on December 19th of 2023, just this past Christmas. Nora Ephron, creator of the modern rom-com, came out in February of 2023, and we talk about a lot of 80s movies through that, so I thought I would include it. Great Scott. It's an episode on the iconic Back to the Future. Came out July 11th of 2023. We did a 2-part focus on E.T. in May of 2023.
E.T. and his tiny creepy teeth.
I Want My Old MTV aired November of 2022. And I put this in as kind of an honorable mention. Stranger Things, a nostalgic love letter to the 80s, was also November of 2022. I Feel the Need for a Sequel, Top Gun Maverick and The Real Top Gun. We touch on the first Top Gun. I'm not sure, I threw it in here. That was August of 2022. Stalked, the Rebecca Schaefer story related to some events of the 1980s. That was in March of 2022. And In the Pit with Cobra Kai was November 9th of 2021.
Wow.
I know.
Why does 2022 feel like yesterday, but also like a millennium ago?
I know. It's kind of crazy.
Wild.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to delve into 3 specific topics, just as we did last time. Just not a deep dive,
Yeah.
but just talk about them in a little more detail. And I'm starting with the one I skipped. This made number 2 in the list on that show that I've already referenced called 80s Top 10. And it was Live Aid.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember anything about
Is
Live Aid?
Is that the one where they sang We Are the World?
Well, no.
Oh, then I'm
but
thinking something
it's
different.
related to that.
Okay.
It came after that.
Okay, then tell me about it.
Okay. Jump in here at any point if the memories start flooding back. The backstory is in 1984, this unprecedented thing happened when some of the most popular British and Irish musicians came together to record the song Do They Know It's Christmas as a way to raise money to end famine in Ethiopia. Bob Geldof, a musician and the frontman for the band Boomtown Rats, with the help of recording artist Midge Ure, instigated the thing and organized it, and this resulted in a monster hit that did raise millions of dollars for the cause. Then the popularity of that project, Do You Know It's Christmas, inspired Harry Belafonte to organize the same type of thing in the U.S. He recruited Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson to co-write the song, which would end up being We Are the World, and they brought this huge group of American artists together, and they recorded it in 1985. Also a smash hit, with most of the proceeds being used to help end poverty in Africa, although 10% was set aside for efforts to combat homelessness in the U.S., which I believe was a request that Stevie Wonder made.
Oh.
So because of these two super successful and popular charity events, charity projects, Bob Geldof then decided, I wonder what else we could do. And he, along with Midge Ure, helped organize what has been referred to as the most ambitious global television event of its time. It's Live Aid, a benefit concert that ended up being watched by over 1.5 billion people worldwide when it was broadcast on July 13th of 1985. This fundraising event was held simultaneously at Philadelphia's John F. Kennedy Stadium and London's Wembley Stadium, where Prince Charles and Princess Diana were there to open the concert.
Wow.
Now, they said that other countries were holding live concerts as well, raising money in their own locations, but these were the two biggies that are being televised. More than 70 of the biggest acts in the music industry performed.
70?
More than 70, yes.
Wow.
We had everybody from Rick Springfield to Madonna, Elton John, David Bowie, Paul McCartney, Led Zeppelin, U2. It went on and on and on. Their goal, again, was to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia, and a large number of telethons were held in different countries while the concert was broadcast, so people could be donating money. That's how it was. That was how it was working. The event ended up raising approximately $127 million for famine relief. So one of the reasons why I chose to highlight this in this episode was because in the 80s, it was basically kind of this new phenomenon, being able to bring together large groups of pop stars to support causes outside their own country. As a BBC article I ran across phrased it, quote, "It provided a blueprint for numerous other all-star charity concerts, as well as helping to promote the discussion of humanitarian relief, which subsequently became a major talking point for Western governments." So that was one reason, but there's a second reason that I wanted to highlight this, and it's because I was so surprised. Over and over and over again, different sources would comment on the one band that stole the show at Live Aid.
Who? Was it Queen?
It was Queen.
It was Queen. It was
It
Queen.
was Queen.
Yep.
Did you watch the movie?
I did not get to see it. I want to see that, though.
Okay. I did get to see it.
What'd you
and
think?
I thought it was really good. Now, of course, as with all the movies that are based on people's lives, I have since heard some criticisms about things that were not portrayed accurately, but I thought Rami Malek was an amazing performer.
He got the Oscar for that, right?
Yeah, I was very interested. I believe he did. I didn't look that up, but I was very interested in the movie.
Little Tim is in it too. Timmy from Jurassic Park.
Oh,
He's in it.
nice.
He's one of the bandmates.
You know, I should also say, since we've paused for a moment, there is, I think it's on Netflix, there is a show it's a documentary style show about the making of We Are the World.
Oh, really? Cool.
It is 100% televised. You are seeing footage behind the scenes of the whole process. Lionel Richie talks. He kind of narrates, or I guess interviews with him is used as a narration tool, is a better way to phrase it. So super interesting if you want to go find out more about any of this. But let's talk about Queen. So here's the backstory. They were slated to perform. Of course, they're trying to get all these different bands and artists to perform. But Queen had actually been in a bit of a slump. Nobody was really expecting a lot from them. But according to CNN and a number of other sources I read, their set ended up being referred to by many as the greatest live gig of all time.
Whoa.
They were on stage somewhere around 20 to 22 minutes, and they performed 6 songs in this order: Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, Hammer to Fall, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, We Will Rock You, and then they ended with We Are the Champions.
Wow.
Everybody talks about Freddie Mercury being on fire during that performance. Another member of Queen, Brian May, was quoted as saying years later, "The rest of us played okay, but Freddie was out there and took it to another level." And Bohemian Rhapsody, that film, again, though criticized for taking some liberties with the truth, I heard a lot of positive comments saying that Rami Malek's portrayal of Freddie Mercury when he was on stage during Live Aid is pretty representative of how powerful his performance was, if you want to look at that. I think the word I saw over and over again was his unbelievable energy and his charisma. Brian May also said in a different interview that he thought part of their success was due to the fact that they had a little bit of an unfair advantage over everybody else because they'd played football stadiums before.
Oh, so they knew how to play to a big crowd.
They knew how to work it. They knew how to play to that crowd. And that was something that they talked about was Freddie Mercury had the whole crowd pumping their fists.
Those songs, though,
back.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Talk about anthems.
Well, and they had specifically told the artists, don't be trying to sell your new stuff. Don't be bringing out new things that people don't know. We are here for the purpose of really pleasing this crowd and trying to raise money for a great cause. Sing the songs that everybody knows that people are going to love. And Queen did it. Yeah.
They said, duly noted.
A BBC commentator for Live Aid later said, quote, "The BBC took a survey of its listeners and viewers the following week asking who was the best at Live Aid. 60% said Queen. Now, when you bear in mind who else was on that bill, Elton, McCartney, Bowie, for more than 50% of an audience to agree on anything is amazing. But for 60% to say that the world's greatest were outshone by Queen on that day, that shows you the power of that performance.
That does.
Another benefit for them personally was it reinvigorated the band's career. Queen ended up booking a comeback tour the next year and released 3 more studio albums during Freddie Mercury's lifetime.
That's cool.
So there you go. A little look at Live Aid and Queen's performance.
Nice.
Before we go on, why don't we take a quick break? We love including listener voices in our episodes, and we're always looking for more. So tell us, where do you sip your scandal water? Do you catch up on the tea while folding your laundry, sitting at your work desk, working out at the gym? Let us know by sending in your shout out, telling us your first name, your hometown, and where you are or what you're doing when you listen to Scandal Water. And you just might hear a voice you recognize starting one of our upcoming episodes. Email your audio clip to scandalwaterpodcast@gmail.com. The voice memo app on your phone will work just fine. Cheers! And we are back.
Yeah, and I had to look up. I couldn't believe I blanked on Joe Mazzello's name, who was in that bio. But I called him Little Tim, and I don't want to just refer to him as Little Tim. Yeah, so it was Joe Mazzello.
Got it. So before we move on to the next one, let me ask you this: who would you say is the artist probably most representative singer of the 80s?
Going Jackson. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could not do Thriller.
Yeah, Michael Jackson.
100%.
Yep.
In fact, when I told Kirk I was going to be researching a couple of topics related to the 80s, he was like, "You're going to do Thriller, right?" I mean, like...
I almost feel like you should have saved it for a Halloween episode, or an October episode.
Well, we can always do a deep dive because this is kind of light.
Surface.
Yeah, this is surface level. But here's just a little bit about Thriller. And you know what? Let's pause and say, another reason why I wanted to do it, because I feel like this was the 80s we're talking about, but I feel like if I walked up to a 15 or 25-year-old today and said, you know what, show me a couple of moves from the Thriller dance, they'd be able to do it.
They could do it.
I think even our young people today, it has been so long-lasting, so pervasive that people today know this. So how could we not? How could we not do
How could we not?
All right, so here we go. According to a Rolling Stone article, quote, Michael Jackson towered over the 80s the way no superstar before or since has dominated an era, not even Elvis or the Beatles. And Thriller is the reason why. Still in his early 20s, the R&B child star of the 1970s had ripened into a technicolor soul man, a singer, dancer, and songwriter with incomparable crossover instincts.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. I think I called him just a singer, but he was a singer, dancer,
He had
and
everything.
songwriter.
The moonwalk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He changed pop culture. He changed dance. He changed music. So his album Thriller was released in 1982 and includes hit songs such as Beat It, Billie Jean, and of course, Thriller. It helped to turn him into a global superstar, and it was around this time that they started calling him the King of Pop. I looked this up. Some sources disagree. I saw a few, it always depends on your source. I saw a few that listed the Eagles a few times, but a bunch of sources maintain that Thriller is still the best-selling album of all time to this day.
For real?
That's what I saw.
Wow.
Its success was unbelievable. That album was number one for 37 weeks. It had sold 33 million copies by the end of 1983, and Michael Jackson won 8 Grammys, which was at that time unprecedented for somebody to win in a single night. CNN said that the Thriller music video became a record-selling VHS tape and is widely recognized as the greatest and most famous music video of all time.
I don't know about the greatest, but I would say it's probably the best known.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, that's a judgment call. I think they meant in terms of popularity.
Yeah.
But in 2009, Thriller became the first music video added to the National Film Registry in the U.S. So let's talk about the video for just a second. What do you remember about the video?
His spooky eyes at the end.
I know.
His spooky eyes. And the meme of him eating popcorn, people use that a lot. And I remember the narration and the dance.
Yes.
So that's about it.
Yes. I think we actually talked about this a little bit when we did our I Want My Old MTV episode. I remember thinking it was terrifying. I mean, it was scary. I wasn't expecting this from my perception of Michael Jackson was pop and, very light and fluffy and, I mean, just fun. And oh my goodness, to see him in that light. But it was amazing. It was just so catchy. I also think it was kind of groundbreaking for a music video to last that long.
Yeah, to be so long.
Was it, like 12 minutes long?
It's long form.
Right. Here's what I saw in my sources. The video was directed by John Landis, and they said it's more a short horror flick. It begins with 24-year-old Michael Jackson transforming into, they called it a werecat. Oh, nice. And stalking his date, played by Ola Ray, through an eerie, foggy forest, only for a plot twist to reveal that it's kind of this meta movie within a music video thing. So they're actually watching their alter egos during this date night at the theater. And then basically, as they walk home, they encounter this horde of zombies. And that's when Michael Jackson himself turns into a zombie and the music begins. The dance begins, I should say. In addition to the stratospheric success it brought to Michael Jackson, that Thriller album is also credited with helping to ensure the success of MTV, which was really young at that time. They said that it was struggling a little bit, but when this video came out,
they played it and everybody wanted to watch it.
I mean,
because you didn't have a way to watch it, rewatch it. Like we can just pull it up on YouTube. You couldn't do that then.
No, you had to wait for things. And in fact, one of the VJs from MTV back in the old days commented that they played it all the time. It's like, I mean, you were going to see it every hour, if not every half hour. I mean, it was all the time. Finally, a cultural historian who wrote a book about Michael Jackson commented this about the significance of Thriller. Thriller changed the trajectory of music, the way it sounded, the way it felt, the way it looked, the way it was consumed. Only a handful of albums come anywhere close to its seismic cultural impact.
I believe that.
So there you go. A brief look at Thriller.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to have to go more in depth on that. So guys, let her know that you want her to do that for October so we can go ahead and have a cool episode.
So I'm going to take you so by surprise.
Oh
with
my
the
goodness.
last thing
Okay.
that I cover. I guarantee
two music
you are
things.
not expecting this.
Okay, I'm ready. What do you want me to guess it?
I don't think you would ever.
Okay, give me a clue. Just give me a clue. Let me see if I can.
It's not about fashion, but it relates to fashion.
It's not about fashion, but it relates to fashion. Is it jewelry?
The 80s fitness craze.
Oh, Jane Fonda.
And?
Richard Simmons.
Yes!
Yeah, Richard Simmons. Yes.
So what do you think of when you think about the 80s fitness craze beyond those two people?
I was not a part of it. That's what I think about it. I don't know. I was a little kid, so I could eat anything I wanted then,
Yes.
I think it's great, though.
Okay, did you, I'm sure at your age you wouldn't have, but I'll ask it anyway. Did you ever wear leg warmers or
Oh,
a headband?
sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when we went to the roller skating rink, you would wear that kind of stuff, and because it could glow. And I have never attempted a Jane Fonda exercise routine, but my mom did, and she said it's a real serious
workout.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
have done Richard Simmons because he's more my speed. Like it's a little slower. We're dancing to the oldies. I like that stuff. But yeah, I've done his exercises, but I've not done hers.
Nice.
When I got older and needed to.
I had so much fun with this because I never dreamed I would be doing something on the 80s fitness craze, but I was like, this was such a big part of the decade. It really was. A Women's Health article outlining some of the biggest fitness trends across the decades gave me this lovely little timeline that laid out basically for me how these different fitness events kind of led us through the fitness craze of the 80s. So I'm going to quickly give you this timeline. In 1980 was when you had Chuck Norris starting to do these late night infomercials along with Christy Brinkley trying to sell Total Gym.
Yeah.
Total Gym was this functional exercise, that's what they called it, machine that was designed to promote total body sculpting using pulleys and body weight without the impact that you normally have. And they said this was significant because having Chuck Norris behind this really started to help promote sales of home exercise equipment. 1981 was when we had Denise Austin come onto our radars. She was a fitness guru who had gained media exposure by appearing on the Jack LaLanne show, and which helped her then to go on and land her own TV show, after which she then released a number of workout videos focusing on aerobics and strong abs. This leads us to 1982 and Jane Fonda. Jane, of course, was a famous actress already, and they give her credit for basically launching a fitness movement when she released her first workout video, an aerobics tape called Workout, in April of 1982. And that was the first of many best-selling videos, but this also helped to spread the fitness fashion trend. We're going to talk about what actually started it, but she definitely helped spread the trends of the neon spandex, sweatbands, and leg warmers. Okay? 1985. Jazzercise already existed, but it was in the mid-80s that it became one of the fastest growing franchises in the country, according to Forbes. So the rise of Jazzercise, again, helps to spread this fitness craze. 1987 was when we had Buns of Steel.
Oh,
yes.
I do not have Buns of Steel. I do not.
Incredibly popular workout video that, as again, released in 1987, that was focused on targeting and toning one's rear end and was so popular there was even a shout out in the movie Clueless about it. And then it was just after that Richard Simmons was really big on everybody's radars. Yes. I mean, Richard Simmons was involved in a lot of things. He had actually been on General Hospital.
Oh, had he?
Yes. And he had the Richard Simmons show for a while, but I think most people associate him, he did a lot of talk shows too, but I think most people associate him with Sweating to the Oldies, which was his best-selling fitness video series that made fitness very accessible to everyone of all ages, as you said.
Needs a full episode himself, because there was also recently, where he went missing and people were like, where's Richard? Is he okay? And then he's come out and his announcements and things like that. So he needs his own episode.
Okay. We just need to be making a list.
We should. We really should. Somebody could buy a list.
Well, according to U.S. News and World Report, an article I read there, Jane Fonda and Richard Simmons are actually the people that everyone seems to see as the face of fitness in the 80s. Through her videos, Jane was given a lot of credit for making fitness workouts much more accessible to people because, especially women, because you could do it in your own home, and it just made it a lot easier for you to do it on your own time, your own schedule. And Richard Simmons, as we've already said, was given credit for emphasizing that fitness is for everybody.
Yeah.
And as we've heard when talking through the timeline, it was also through this decade that home exercise equipment was being introduced into the marketplace. And also, you had a lot of new corporate gym chains opening. So you could go work out at the gym. You could work out at home now. So a lot of things happening in the 80s with fitness. But in terms of the fashion craze, would you like to guess what actually was mentioned time and time again as being the spark for all that? Olivia Newton-John's
physical. Let's get physical. Yes.
I thought this was so fun. Because of MTV, music videos had become almost as important as songs themselves.
Sure.
Everybody, all the artists, you needed to have a great, funny, or entertaining, or whatever the word might be, spectacular music video. She came up with the help of her team there, a 1981 music video for Physical that became massacely successful.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw a little interview where she did not think much of it and she didn't think it had much hope. She was actually afraid that it was either going to come across as too sexy or had the right tone. And so because of her reservations, they actually decided to go back in and try to make it funny. So they tried to come at it from a humorous slant. I think it probably hasn't aged very well. Looking at it now, this is not a video I think that has aged well. But at the time, everybody loved it. It was a #1 hit in the US for 10 weeks, the song was. And at that point, the only song that had stayed at #1 for longer was Elvis Presley's Hound Dog.
Oh, wow.
And the music video itself did win her a Grammy Award for Video of the Year. This song ended up being one of the most successful songs of Olivia Newton-John's entire career.
Wow.
But in addition, as we've already alluded, it changed the fashion scene. According to an article for Smooth Radio, they said sportswear was not considered fashionable attire prior to this. But after her video came out, sales of leotards and lycra went through the roof. And then again, we had Jane Fonda and other people coming in, and that helped to just cement that. Olivia Newton-John herself commented on this in a video post on her YouTube channel in December of 2021 saying, quote, "It was the birth of the 80s headband fashion craze. I should have started a headband and leg warmer company or made fitness videos.
Yeah.
Jane Fonda beat me to it." Yeah. And then it also said in this article that in addition to Jane Fonda and some of these other things that were happening, we had films like Flashdance and Footloose that also helped to add to the fashion trend. So that's it, Ashley.
I love it. I love it.
Little taste of the 80s.
Got a lot of episode ideas too for future.
Armchair psychologist.
So let's go into our armchair and just reflect on what this makes us think about in terms of the 80s.
I tell you, it's interesting for me to hear stuff because I was under 10 when all this was happening. So it's interesting for me to learn about things that would have not been necessarily in my wheelhouse at the age that I was at the time.
Right. You were just a child.
Yeah, but it's still cool to hear about what was impacting other people in my decade. It's mine. I own it.
You own it.
I own it.
It's yours.
Mine.
I think what strikes me, if you step back and just look at it from an aesthetic point of view first, it was a time that was so colorful. It was a time of neon and spectacle and just colors everywhere. It was so loud. It was
like if the 70s was sequins, I feel like the 80s is neon.
Yes.
You know, if you associate like a fabric or a color with it.
And I think that spilled over then. Like you kind of had that same energy then moving into some of the movies or music videos or some of the things that you saw.
The makeup.
Yes.
Ooh, that makeup was strong.
Yeah. But when I think about Thriller, it had that energy. It had the spectacle. It had what I would consider a very colorful, performance-based vibe to it. So those are a few thoughts that I have, I think, about the 80s. I do think about it as being just a fun time. I do. I mean, it just feels like a fun time. 70s felt a little more political.
Yeah.
80s feels a little, I mean, not that there weren't a lot of politics happening in the 80s too, don't get me wrong, but I think it feels a little more lighthearted.
Maybe it's just our lens looking back, nostalgic lens, like, oh, the 80s. And then people back then, we've been like, oh, the 80s, who knows?
And the 80s was a time of children too. I'm looking at your shirt, the
I know,
Goonies.
the
It was
Goonies.
like, let's put these children in these situations
Of peril.
yes, and
do it.
they're gonna get us. They're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
Was this the latchkey kid period?
I think it started it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a big where the parents were working and the kids had to come home after school and take care of themselves. So they watch TV. When you come home, you watch TV.
So it was a time when we were tailoring things a lot more to young people. We were considering, it wasn't just, things were not targeted just to adults. You have things like MTV that are focused on the young people. You have shows like The Goonies or E.T., that are
The
really,
magic of childhood.
Right.
Stand By Me. Did that
Stand
come out
By
in the
Me.
80s? I think it did, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, it is so hard to think of someone to cheers when we're talking about an entire decade
I
and
know.
all these artists. But I'm going to call out, I think, the two people that we highlighted the most, if I'm remembering correctly, Freddie Mercury, who stole the show, according to what everybody said during that Live Aid performance, and Michael Jackson with his Thriller,
Yeah.
who cemented his reputation, his name as the king of pop. So cheers to you, fellas.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show. Or you can become a supporter by making a donation through buymeacoffee.com/scandalwaterpod. Whether a single gift or a recurring monthly donation, it would go a long way towards supporting our work and allowing us to keep the tea brewing.
At our website, www.scandalwaterpodcast.com, you can submit questions or your own story ideas, access our sources and show notes, see the merch we offer for sale, and more. You can join the Scandal Water community through our Scandal Water Podcast Facebook page or follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Scandal Water Podcast.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music, Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.